let's start today with the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. Grizzlies are a 2-point favorite on the road. This series is tied 1-1. Wolves took game one. Memphis came back, won game two by margin, and now the series is back in Minnesota. And I have a feeling that arena is going to be pretty wild tonight because this is the Wolves' first official playoff game in a very long time, and we all saw what happened after they won the play-in. So this is a big deal for Minnesota fans tonight. Chris, what's your thoughts on this game? Any plays?
Yeah, so obviously in the playoffs, the one thing that we try to find is some consistency, right, or some angles we can actually play on. And we've seen some pretty volatile playoffs so far. If you would have told me that the most consistent team so far would have been the Warriors and the 76ers, I don't think I would have believed you. But, I mean, here we are. But one of the consistent things that we see in these games are that they start pretty fast, right? They start with a lot of points, a lot of pace. So I'm going to continue to play this angle first quarter over. It's a little lower in this one, which, spooks me a little bit that it came out like that in the market. But at 58.5, this is a very beatable line. Both of these teams leading the playoffs in pace, obviously able to explode on offense. And I really like from what I saw from the Grizzlies in that last contest. Back to basics, right? They controlled the paint, a lot of points in the paint, a lot of offensive rebounds, controlled the rebounds in general. And they showed a little bit of that top six defense. Minnesota kind of disappeared in the fourth quarter. I believe they were down like 18 points heading into the fourth quarter, so they kind of gave up. And that's what Minnesota does sometimes. They should have a lot more fight in them in this game. They are at home, right? That crowd, like you mentioned, Kate, should be raucous. Plus, in that last game, Minnesota, they shot 29% from beyond the arc. This is a really good three-point shooting team. So you got to expect some positive regression in that sense. And there's been a ton of fouls in this contest. And we're talking 40 to 50 fouls per game. These guys have been getting to the foul line. That obviously means more points, but what it also means is that defenses kind of have to back up and allow more space. A lot of fouls being called in this one. There's also a lot of attacking the rim, right? So that makes sense. I'm going to continue with this first quarter over. I wouldn't take the full game at 32, 37.5, I think it is now. It's gone up a little bit, but we've seen it slow down later in these games. And like we said, these teams, they're young teams, so these players can kind of give up, right, and just kind of stop scoring later in the game. So I don't know if I trust the full game, but I still like the first quarter over.
I like that angle. It's one I took in game two for them with Memphis team total over in the first quarter. And in that game two, they combined for 65 total points in the first quarter. And that game was so slow to start. 20 fouls called in the first quarter, and it really just didn't allow either team to get into a rhythm. And those are two teams that like to get up and down the court and play fast. And so I was worried at that going over 33 for Memphis in the first quarter of that game. And that one easily hit. And so both of these teams, I mean, they lead the league in scoring in the first quarter, averaging just over 69 points in the first quarter throughout this series. Karl Anthony Towns ranks second behind Devin Booker for most first quarter points. So great angle to be looking there. Jeff, any thoughts on playing either the side or the total in this game?
Yeah, so this series has been interesting. I didn't really get involved with game one from a side or total perspective. I waited for game two. We look at game one. Memphis just didn't play well, okay? They didn't make anything from three. They got out-rebounded, which is a complete joke. I mean, this team was the best rebounding team by a wide margin in the NBA, as we know, all year. They led the NBA by, I think over 3 rebounds more than anyone else. This team doesn't get out-rebounded. Just one of those weird games. We saw everything kind of come back to normal in game two. And that was, I think, what this series is. I think Minnesota is a solid team. I just, like Chris described with another team earlier, I just don't think they're fully there yet. I think it was the Raptors. They're a young team. They're exciting. But I think, as we know, Memphis is deep. They've got a complete superstar. The most important player, though, for Memphis that we don't talk enough about, Jaren Jackson. Okay, you look at Jaren Jackson in game two. Much more effective. On the block, he is their best player. And he's a guy that can destroy the Minnesota interior defense. It's not good. Their 2-point shooting percentage was bad all year defensively. I'm going to kind of come back to the well, I think, with him in some way. He had, I think, 17 in the first game or in the second game. You look at this year against Minnesota, averaging about 17 per game. His prop tonight, I think, is 15.5. I think he needs to play 30 minutes. I know they're deep. I know they want to go to other guys, but he was effective in game two. I think he'd be effective here. I don't really love a side. I lean Memphis, but I kind of like Jaren Jackson in the prop market, points over 15.5, but I lean Memphis. I just think they're just better than the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Steven Adams has been playing less these last, I guess, just this last game, which would mean that Jaren Jackson Jr. might get a little bit more playing time. So I don't hate that look either, Jeff. Both of these teams being very young, but it just seems like Memphis is the more disciplined team. The Wolves get down. If Karl Anthony Towns gets off to a bad start, he just kind of folds down the stretch. Minnesota takes bad shots. So I lean towards the Grizzlies in this one as well, but not an official play for me. But Chris, the only one with an official play on this one, taking the first quarter over 58.5.